The drug Sovaldi, mentioned in Meg's story, has become a lightning rod in the debate over drug prices, and that's because insurance companies and federal health programs have to weigh the proven effectiveness of that hepatitis C treatment against that staggering $84,000 cost. Bertha Coombs takes a closer look now at Sovaldi and its impact on one patient's life.
Michelle Carver doesn't know how she got hepatitis C. It might have been from a blood transfusion years ago.
I was in shock when I found out I had it, and I'm in shock to find out that it actually can leave my body.
She's undergoing treatment with the controversial new hep C drug Sovaldi, made by Gilead Sciences and J&J's Alizio.
I take the 2 pills, and that's it. I haven't had one side effect.
And she now tests negative for the hep C virus, which untreated can lead to liver failure.
I'm exercising again.
I'm glad to hear that. And no pain in your belly.
I have no pain in my belly.
There's no question the drug works.
We're talking about curing people with a 90 to 100% success rate at this point. It's a whole new ballgame.
But at a high price. The 12-week treatment with Sovaldi costs $84,000, $1,000 per pill. With the companion drug Alizio, the new cure tops $140,000, 3 times the cost of older hep C drugs. But those drugs often have costly side effects. Sovaldi doesn't.
It might seem like sticker shock, but the truth of the matter is that you're saving money in the long term.
Well, Sovaldi isn't the first sticker shock drug. It may be the biggest. An estimated 3 million Americans are infected with the hep C virus, and demand has been strong.
We have a large number of people that are really willing to be treated that previously resisted treatment because they were afraid of the side effects.
The drug saw more than $2 billion in sales in its first 3 months, and that has private insurance, Medicaid, and Medicare plans bracing for a steep jump in drug costs this year.
It is both a high price and a high volume, and that's what makes people very nervous about what it might mean to the cost of care and the cost of programs and to the cost of insurance.
Michelle Carver worried about Sovaldi's costs. She feels blessed her insurer covered it.
I feel so much better since I've been taking it.
As many as 3 new hepatitis C treatments are expected to come to market between now and 2016, which could bring prices down because of competition. But for now, Sovaldi has a lock on the market. Bertha Coombs, Nightly Business Report, New York.
So why are prices for some specialty drugs so high, and what, if anything, can be done about it? Joining us now with 2 different views on this subject, Lori Riley. She's Executive Vice President for Policy and Research at the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, PhRMA. And Dan Durham is Executive Vice President for Policy and Regulatory Affairs at America's Health Insurance Plans. Lori, let me begin with you. I mean, it's such a heartwarming story that Bertha just reported on, when somebody has a drug that can be cured permanently of a terrible disease. But how do you explain why Gilead charges $84,000 for this treatment in the United States, but charges $900 for the same medication over the same time, $900 in Egypt?
Right. Well, thanks for the question. Thanks for having me here today. I think the point that was made in your earlier piece about this medicine and the value that it creates for patients. When you think about hepatitis C, this is a condition that kills more patients in the United States than HIV/AIDS. It is the leading cause of liver cancer. Patients that have this disease often have many costly episodes of care throughout the year. We now have a treatment that provides 90 to 100% cure rate over a 12-week period of time with little to no side effects. It's really hard to argue about the value that this medicine is bringing to society. I think a lot of the reason that the focus right now is on the price of medicines is in part because our insurance system demands that patients, like the patient that we saw there, often pay a much higher percent for that medicine out of pocket compared to a lot of other health care. So
yeah,
for example,
I get what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt, but why is it $84,000 in the U.S. and $900 for the same drug in Egypt? That's a huge discrepancy.
Well, I think, one thing is clear, that healthcare in the United States is often more expensive than it is in other places. And that's true not just for prescription medicines, it's true for virtually every other form of healthcare. You have countries around the world that have much lower cost of living, much lower economic abilities for patients, and honestly a much higher epidemic for this medicine. But again, you know, going back to the situation in the United States, I think it is important to put the cost of medicines into perspective. As a society, we're spending about 10 to 12% of all of healthcare on medicines. It's been about the same amount for the last many years, and it's projected to be about the same going forward. A lot of times the insurers want to put the spotlight on a handful of medicines and ignore the fact that about 86% of all prescriptions prescribed today are generic medicines.
Right.
And we have a system in the United States that encourages that kind of efficiency.
Let me bring Dan Durham in. Much to consider there. Lori has laid out a point of view. I'm just going to lay it out on the table for you to react to that. And obviously, no one's questioning the value of these medications, really, because obviously they have life-saving value. What people are perplexed by, Dan, is the pricing of those medicines and why in our system they are so much higher than they are in other parts of the world.
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, we're facing a public health crisis in this country with hepatitis C. And to deal effectively with that type of crisis, stakeholders need to react responsibly. Price gouging is not acting responsibly. Charging $1,000 a pill, $84,000 for a course of treatment, is not acting responsibly. Asking for a blank check is not acting responsibly. The growth in prices that we're seeing for these specialty medicines is simply unsustainable. It's unsustainable for family budgets. It's unsustainable for small businesses that are providing health coverage to their employees. And it's unsustainable for taxpayers that are funding important programs like Medicare and Medicaid.
Are we ultimately, Dan, going to have a two-tiered healthcare system for the people who can afford the best plans are going to get these kinds of drugs, and the other people are going to be left out in the cold?
Well, that's another excellent question. Health plans do everything they can to hold down premiums. And part of that involves negotiating the best price they can for the consumers that they serve. And when you have a monopoly, as we do in this case, of a specialty medicine that has no competitors, there's no leverage to negotiate that kind of lower price. And so it becomes difficult and very challenging to ensure that patients have access to these kind of medicines.
We've run out of time on this very important discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Lori Riley with the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, and Dan Durham from America's Health Insurance Plans. Thank you both very much.